Good morning. Welcome to Connecting America on the USA Today streaming channels. Dave's got his
Hey,
coffee.
buddy.
He's happy. It's hump day. I'm Jim Rosenfield, along Dave Briggs here at the
I
Sunrise
thought it was
Diner.
Thursday for a minute. You just ruined my day.
It is Wednesday, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry. My
Yes,
bad.
it is.
You know what else? Is day 22, Dave, of the government shutdown. Still going on. Nothing's changed while you were sleeping. We have hundreds of thousands of government workers furloughed or outright fired at this point. Even the people who oversee our nuclear stockpile are getting furlough notices. And as bad as it is for so many government workers, the fallout is also being felt by small and big business owners as well. We're going to talk about that today. For instance, so-called gateway cities on the outskirts of our national parks, they are suffering this morning. Places like West Yellowstone, Montana, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Bar Harbor, Maine, Wall, South Dakota, Williams, Arizona, the list goes on. The National Parks Conservation Association is estimating a national loss of $80 million per day in visitor spending in communities adjacent to these parks. One business owner near Glacier National Park said the traffic in front of her store the first week of the shutdown was tumbleweed.
The devastation is spreading across the country. Thousands of people, government workers, were lined up at a food bank yesterday, and that is when this toll is really setting in. Grand Canyon also is open. It's frankly too big to close, but many trails are closed. So is the South Rim Visitor Center, and RVs can't hook up in most of the campgrounds.
All right, let's dive into this a little bit. Dawn Trapp is with us, the CEO of the Civitan Foundation, which runs a thrift store in Williams, Arizona. It's a popular town on the way to the Grand Canyon, with the proceeds from the store going towards a nonprofit camp for special needs children and adults. So they're experiencing a kind of double whammy. Fewer customers because of the shutdown, and then this hit to federal funding for their camp. Dawn Trapp, the CEO of Civitan Foundation, joining us this morning. Good morning, Dawn. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
So educate us a little bit about the store and also the connection to the camp and the work you guys do.
Sure. Civitan Foundation is a foundation that's been around actually since 1968 in Williams. That's where we got our start. And that's where we've continued to offer ongoing programs for individuals with disabilities and a camp that we run there. We also opened a thrift store about 12 years ago to help us with sharing our mission, and also a place where we could collect revenues and help support the camp. So we've had the store there for about 10 years, right on Route 66.
And how's the shutdown impacting funding at the camp and therefore those with disabilities?
Well, we still hold our breath. The governor is not taking away our funding as of yet, really working hard to keep that funding going. As far as the store is concerned, we definitely have seen a decrease of individuals walking on our streets, coming in our store and spending the dollars that they usually would at this time of the year. We are a tourist town, Williams, but majorly affecting other stores as well, and businesses, shops, restaurants with less people traveling.
So looking into your crystal ball, if this shutdown goes on much longer, are you worried that you might have to cut some of the services at the camp?
Well, our camp is predominantly summer, although we do have year round, so we'll have weekends throughout the rest of the year. We hope we will be able to continue like we have been. We have a strong support of other donors, and our families are supportive of what we do and love that time when their loved one gets to come away to camp. So I think that we should be okay. The store, though, we definitely are seeing that decrease in sales. So overall, it definitely impacts our spending and what we can do throughout the rest of the year.
Don, let's set that all aside. Just as an American, as a taxpayer, when you sit back and say, who do you blame for all this? The shutdown.
Yeah. It's just things not getting done. It just feels like, that ball keeps rolling and picking up things and getting in the way of things, everywhere. I would like to, I would like to think that, some of the cuts need to be made, right? I mean, government spending is at an all-time high, but the direct services that are there for the individuals that truly need it, the services that are, I heard you talk a little bit about, workers starting to go to the food banks. Those are the kind of services that are just are so important that are there for the individuals, for the people of America. Um, it is hard times. I think that so many times we just think it's not affecting us. It's someone else until it's not.
Yeah, and so much of the story recently has been about, tech CEOs and AI executives making billions upon billions of dollars. We always love to have conversations with people like yourself. Sit back and just say to me, do you feel like government, and this isn't about Republicans or Democrats, do you feel like government is working for people like yourself right now?
I think it's a very fine line. I think they want to. I think that they
Hmm.
try to. I just, we hate being in those situations where, it's all over the news that they're going to cut the services for individuals with disabilities. It's scary. Our phones ring, our families are concerned that some of the services are going to be cut, and they really wonder how they're going to make ends meet and who's going to help, care for their loved ones. So, um, yeah,
I'm
that's
wondering, Don, what would you say this morning to our leadership in Washington, President Trump, or the leaders in the House and the Senate? What would you want them to hear from you?
I think that vulnerable adults and children are in a place where they don't have a lot of options or choices. They have what they have, and the supports are very much needed. Families struggle. Having an individual with a disability is a very hard life. There's so many beautiful silver linings, but it truly is hard for the whole family. So without some of the supports that we're able to offer for the families, there's major breakdowns, a lot of high divorce rates, siblings having to step up and do things. So without these supports, it's not just for the person with a disability. It's for their whole community. It's for their whole family, and it affects everyone.
That's real life. Yeah. Dawn
It is.
Trapp, thank you for joining us from the Civitan Foundation. Maybe we'll check back with you as this goes on, or there's a resolution, and that'd be great news for them to be able to continue
It
their
would.
great work.
There's just not enough focus from either party, but in particular the leadership right now, that party that is in leadership, on ordinary Americans in the middle of the country who are struggling right now. And we hear about big fancy ballrooms and stories like this. President Trump demanding that the Justice Department pay him $230 million in compensation for the federal investigations into him. Trump made a claim seeking damages related to FBI and special counsel investigations. The first complaint accused the FBI of violating Trump's privacy by searching Mar-a-Lago for classified documents. The FBI found more than 300 classified documents unsecured at Trump's residence that he had denied having and later refused to turn over. The second claim is related to the Russian election tampering and possible Trump campaign connections to Russian officials. Trump about this says, quote, "I was damaged greatly, and any money I would get, I would give to charity." We should point out, if he gives it to charity, that essentially equates to a $230 million tax write-off, which the president desperately needs with all his businesses and the billions he's making on crypto. But also, the man who would approve this payment is his former personal attorney,
Todd
who is
Blanche.
now the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. We get numb to some of these things. This is never before seen in American political history. Nothing even close.
We should point out for this all first reported by the New York Times. It's getting a lot of play. And the president is saying sort of basically, yeah, the final decision, the final approval comes across my own desk, so I guess I'm suing myself. The optics of which, as we have people, as you say, waiting in lines for food bank food, and not getting paid while he is potentially seeking hundreds of millions of dollars. It's
your money and our money. Just to be clear, this is taxpayer dollars. These are all of our dollars that would then pay the president of the United States.
All right, elsewhere this morning, the second summit between President Trump and President Putin. It's not happening. It's off. The two leaders were planning to meet in Budapest. President Trump announced the meeting last week after he had that 2-hour phone call with Putin, but no date was set on the call, and the decision to call off the summit was made after Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Lavrov took exception to President Trump calling for an immediate ceasefire in this war between Russia and Ukraine, saying that was contrary to what he discussed with President Putin in Alaska. The leaders of the EU and several European allies issued a statement backing the president's calls for that ceasefire.
Interesting starting to hear the shift of, you might call it MAGA media yesterday, Jim, listening to them say, well, at some point, Ukraine is going to have to give up some of its land. And that's an astonishing shift in the narrative, saying they should give up the Donbas region or other regions that Putin controls. And it's shocking because what Zelensky is asking for is Tomahawk missiles to defend himself. And it appeared the U.S. was headed in that direction until Putin apparently told the president otherwise. This is a bleak situation at best.
And the rules of the game keep changing in terms of what the Trump administration is saying Ukraine should or shouldn't do in terms of being okay with giving up the land that Russia already has taken control over, or let's go back to the original lines Trump was saying a week or so ago. That changed again. So, if I'm Zelensky, my head is spinning because I'm not sure what's
and not just Zelensky, but global leaders are saying, if you let this bully take your lunch money once, what's he going to do? He's going to continue taking lunch money from around the region, and is he ever going to stop? We shall see. Meanwhile, back here, measles continuing to spread. The Centers for Disease Control says we now have 1,600 cases in 42 states plus Washington, D.C. Nearly 200 people have been hospitalized and 3 have died. The latest outbreak is along the Utah-Arizona border. The New York Times says 100 new cases have been reported there. That area is similar to West Texas, where the current outbreak started, as it's rural and it has a large population of children who have not been vaccinated. Measles was officially eliminated from the U.S. in 2000, meaning there was no measles spreading within the country, and new cases arise only when someone contracts measles abroad and returns to the country. It had been eliminated. It is now skyrocketing as we have shut down science.
Eliminated through the use of vaccines, which, is obviously a hot button issue with, MAHA folks wanting the choice whether to vaccinate. They don't want vaccine mandates. But is this what we're starting to see with diseases like measles, which were essentially eliminated, creeping back into parts of our country because people are opting out of
primarily
vaccination?
Red states, which is an interesting sidebar here.
All right, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, he was right here at the table yesterday on Connecting America with First Lady Tammy Murphy, and we touched on a lot of topics, including why the race for his successor is so close. Take a listen.
It's the times that we're in, number one. Number two, New Jersey, as blue as it is, has historically elected reasonable Republicans. I'm not sure a MAGA endorsed Republican is reasonable. We'll leave that for somebody else to decide. But this is not a shock. President Trump lost by 5 points last year. He had lost by 16 or 17 in 2020. That happened in a bunch of blue states, not just New Jersey. So I'm not shocked. People are upset by what's going on in Washington. It's a close race for sure. Mm-hmm. I still think it's Mikey Sherrill's to lose. It's the times that we're in, number one. Number two, New Jersey, as blue as it is, has historically.
I deserve time. Mark Bonamo, who's been covering this race really closely here in New Jersey. So it's close, and it looks like it's going down to the wire, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This is a nationally watched race. This race is seen as potentially a indicator of how Trump is doing overall and what's going to happen in the midterms for the critical control of Congress. And now you're in the red zone. It's less than 2 weeks away from the election. So what is really going to drive people to the polls?
What have been the central issues of the race?
Well, it depends on how you want to frame this. If you're Democratic candidate Mikey Sherrill, you're framing this saying Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican candidate, he's just a proxy for Donald Trump. So if you don't like Donald Trump, do not vote for Jack Ciattarelli. Ciattarelli is saying, wait, this is more about local issues. This is about the price of your electricity bills. This is about property taxes. He's trying to more localize the issues. And what you're seeing is that type of struggle taking place on the ground in terms of getting people to polls and trying to appeal to people to get them to go vote.
Are you seeing people on the ground who are interested in these two candidates and plan to vote in this race?
What you're seeing is, I was recently covering a rally down in South Jersey,
Yeah.
and people were saying to me, well, all right, my electricity bill went up from $350 a month to $700 a month. This is, an incredible hike. I can't afford to live in New Jersey anymore. At the same time, you see people getting locally excited in places like Newark saying, oh, Barack Obama is going to be coming to campaign for Mikey Sherrill. Again, something Democrats really feel like they need to do because support in Black and Latino areas have been slipping. You saw in the last election in 2024 here in New Jersey, Trump only lost this state, a state that has a 850,000 gain of more Democrats than Republicans in terms of registration, only lost it by 5 or 6%. So they feel like we better be driving out the vote in the cities, and someone like Barack Obama can potentially do that. But is that what's really in voters' heads when they're going to the poll? What are they thinking about? Are they thinking about this national overlay, or are they thinking about what their everyday life is like?
Yeah, it's interesting because all the focus on red and blue states, New York and New Jersey were the two biggest shifts toward the Republicans,
Right.
toward Trump in the election, both by double digits. I don't think people talked about it enough. It's not entirely clear if that is issue related or more of just Trump fervor. I'm just curious though, Mark, the narrative is the polls continue to tighten.
Right.
I watch the betting markets because that is just money, right? That is just smart people making bets on what they think is going to happen. If anything, this race has moved towards Sherrill. 82% on Kalshi says Mikey wins this race. They have not been wrong in recent history. They have called all the Trump upsets have the betting markets. Do you feel like it's tightening, or is it just a media narrative?
Well, let's talk about the numbers for a minute. Talking about 4 years ago, Governor Murphy, who was just on the show, he was up approximately 7, 8, 9% going into the election. He only won the election over Jack Ciattarelli, who was the nominee last time as well, by only 3 points.
By a razor.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're seeing these polls steadily saying, okay, Mikey Sherrill is up by about 6 or 7. There was one poll by Emerson that said it was a tie, but remains to be seen. But if you're Mikey Sherrill, are you going to trust the polls? Or are you going to try to maximize the amounts of people you want to get out for you to make sure, hey, do you really want to win by, this much?
Yeah.
Are you worried about your voting by mail results?
How much are you hearing out there in the field, in the hinterlands, with regular voters about whether they care about Mikey Sherrill's not, walking at her Naval Academy graduation and the whole cheating scandal and her association with it, and how much Ciattarelli's camp is trying to connect her with that scandal?
I hear it's about the economy. I hear it's about money. It's about what my daily life is like. New Jersey has one of the highest residential property tax rates in the nation. Am I going to be able to pay my mortgage? This is what they're thinking about.
Bottom line, how big a political earthquake would it be if Mark mentioned it, 850,000 vote advantage for the Democrats? How big a political earthquake would it be if Ciattarelli can pull this off? And wake-up call, should it be for the National Democratic Party?
Well, look, the National Democratic Party has already said, Democratic chair for the nation, Ken Martin, we're putting all this money in New Jersey. Especially, we want to make sure we appeal to minority communities because we can't necessarily trust anymore that they're going to automatically vote with us. This could be an indicator of where the country is going in that direction and what the Democrats are going to need to do going forward if they hope to regain Congress and regain the White House.
Can I ask you one last question? I know we're out of time. Sorry,
Sure.
guys. When you see what happened in New York City, Zoran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, easily dominating those polls, the thinking was here in Jersey, we need a moderate-ish
Right.
candidate as opposed to a Mamdani AOC candidate. But isn't all the energy in the party on the far left? Would this tell you there isn't energy in the middle of the Democratic Party?
You can talk about a national trend, but there's also the more local ideas. You know, Mondami is appealing to people in New York because he's talking about how high the rent is in Manhattan. You're talking about the cost of living in New York City. People who can talk to those bread and butter issues, whether they're on the more extreme wing of either side of their party, I think they're the ones who are going to do well.
All right, Mark Bonamo, thanks for joining us here at the table. We appreciate it.
Stick around. Let's find some diner conversations. All right, coming up later in the show, we'll speak with the head of the New Jersey Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Carlos Medina, about the growing impact the Hispanic vote may play in this tight race and what both candidates are doing to court the voters.
You play pickleball?
I love it.
All right.
Love it.
Any injuries for you so far? Or you're healthy.
Not yet, buddy.
Okay,
Not
I don't
yet.
want to jinx it. But coming up next, we're going to be
gonna
talking
be
about
okay.
pickleball getting more and more popular. It's also leading to a lot of ER visits, but not always for the types of injuries you might expect. We'll explain when we come right back. Welcome back to Connecting America here on this Wednesday morning. We're talking pickleball, Dave. Fun sport, right?
You love the game?
I love it. It's fast, it's fun, but I'm very careful not to go after every ball. I got that advice early on.
Oh, I go hardcore,
Don't
man.
lunge, for every. I'm a little older than you are.
Well, my wife has a big problem with it because we'll be playing with another couple. It's her and I, and she's like, "We're just trying to have fun out here."
Right.
I don't have that speed.
You're that guy.
I have full speed, and that's the only speed.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
I'm not playing against you.
The sport continues to just blow up, though, across the country, getting more and more popular. Unfortunately, so too are the injuries from playing pickleball. It's estimated that 20 million people are playing, and those numbers continuing to rise, as are paddle and padel and basically any racket sport at this moment. People are primarily injuring ankles and knees. The sport has been a boon to the physical therapy industry, but eye injuries are also on the rise, Jim. A new study published in the journal JAMA says emergency room visits and researchers found the number of eye injuries soaring over the past several years.
Let's look into this. Dr. Jonathan Su is that study's senior author, a clinical assistant professor at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. Doctor, thank you for joining us. So we know about the orthopedic injuries. We've seen a lot of stories about that. Maybe we have friends who've endured them and they're recovering. But what about eye injuries? What's going on with that?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for allowing me a chance to share a little bit about what some of the research that's going on at Rutgers. Research is a great way for us to be able to impact society as a whole, in addition to seeing patients one at a time. And so for this study, we wanted to see what the eye injury impact was from pickleball increasing in popularity. And to do that, we looked at a database, which is called the National Electronic Injury Surveillance System. And the National Electronic Injury Surveillance System is an database that is run by the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission. Basically, it takes 100 emergency rooms and it aggregates all the types of injuries that are occurring at those 100 emergency rooms and allows you to extrapolate the data for the whole country. And now, anytime you're making an estimate from a smaller data set, there's lots of limitations, but it gives us an idea of the trends that are happening. And we saw a huge uptick in the number of eye-related injuries in the past 3 years. 88% of the last injuries of the last 20 years have been in just the last 3 years.
Doc, what's happening? Are people just getting hit in the eye with the pickleball, and what are the kinds of injuries?
Or is it the racket?
Yeah, it's both, and it's the ball and it's falling. So the types of injuries that we were seeing varied by age type, especially among our older players, those age 50 and above. We were seeing a lot more fall-related injuries, which we weren't really expecting. It's easy to think about the ball hitting your eye or a paddle hitting your eye because those are moving, but you yourself, as you fall, may also injure yourself, as the ball may hit you as you're going for it, or you might hit yourself on the ground. So there's lots of different types of injuries, and they range from injuries that are superficial, ones that'll heal themselves, and also ones that are very serious, ones that don't heal themselves, like retinal detachments and posterior vitreous detachments, which can lead to retinal tears. And as a vitreoretinal surgeon, those are the types of injuries that I'm most in tune with, because these are imminently and permanently blinding potentially. So some of these things are very, very serious.
So what should we do? Should we wear goggles, or should we not play the sport?
Definitely exercise is good for overall health, and that's good for the eyes. But we do recommend that players of all ages and all levels wear eye protection. And we definitely would like to ask our local organizations, as well as national organizations such as USA Pickleball, to raise awareness for these types of ways that we can prevent injuries so that we can keep players on the court for a long time.
I'm just looking at one study that estimates nearly 78,000 injuries nationally. It's an estimate, but the most common injuries, as you might expect, fractures and sprains, wrist injuries.
Ankles and knees have been the primary victims.
And the majority in players 50 and older. So, doctor, what should people be doing if they're planning to, take up this sport, or they're already playing, like Dave, who's a maniac out there, to try to prevent any and all of these injuries or these ER visits?
Yeah, definitely familiarity with the rules even before you get on a court is important, because when you're in the environment and your adrenaline's rushing, you may be more prone to doing sudden movements that you may not be used to. As you get older, strength training, balance training, and training your reflexes is something to be very aware of, just so that you know your limitations. And of course, eye protection, eye protection, eye protection. So we just want to make sure that you see the ball at all times, where your
I don't mean to
opponents
laugh.
and your partners are.
There is no way I'm wearing
eye protection.
I'm picturing that dude in dodgeball, with those plastic goggles. You know that guy?
Yes.
Doc, do you play?
I don't consider myself an expert by any means or an avid player, but yes, I do play in spots there.
That's okay.
I was going to ask him if he'd ever wear goggles. All right, Dr. Sue from Rutgers, really appreciate you being with us, sir. Would you wear goggles? Not a chance. Or do you play in the glasses?
I probably sunglasses, depending on what the weather's
that works.
doing. And those aren't for, vision issues, but no, I wouldn't wear goggles.
But you bring up a point. Sunglasses, then you don't look like a tool.
And your eyes somewhat
And
protected.
your eyes are protected.
Depending on what the lenses are made of. All right, we want you to chime in on our question of the day. Have you had a pickleball experience? What has it been like? Are you a pickleball addict now and then? Do you play just once was enough? Or do you just eat pickles? See that QR code?
Oh, that's a great option.
On the side of your screen.
I appreciate whoever put that in, because I love pickles,
I love them, yes.
I like dill pickles. I like bread and butter pickles. I'm like the Forrest Gump of pickles.
And I think you're safe. There's no risk of injury eating pickles. So
you know what's good, Jim?
What's that?
Pickles in your Bloody Mary.
Oh,
Put
for
in
sure.
a dill pickle
Absolutely.
in your Bloody Mary.
Not going
All
to
right?
argue with that.
You
All
heard
right.
it here. Free advice. You're welcome, America.
Let's check on the weather. Tropical storm Melissa has been forming in the Caribbean, 13th tropical storm of the season, if you're keeping count. With more on that, we're joined by AccuWeather meteorologist Alex De Silva. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, we're continuing to track Melissa right now. The storm's located right in here, right south of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, slowly gaining intensity right now, but it's dealing with some wind shear that's really starting to impact the storm coming from the west. It's blowing a lot of those showers and thunderstorms off to the eastern side of the storm. So I don't think there's going to be any rapid intensification here in the short term. However, as we move towards later portions of the weekend into the weekend, I think that might change. You can see the storm is hardly going to be moving here over the next several days. I mean, you can see these points here coming south of Jamaica here. This is next Tuesday. We could still be dealing with Melissa south of Jamaica. So this is only a few hundred miles here that the storm is going to cover here over the next 5 to 7 days, it looks like. But you can see the intensities slowly ramping up here. We now have a Category 2 hurricane forecast south of Jamaica here, either late this weekend or early next week. And then the question is, where does it go from there? More than likely, it's going to turn to the north and east and go past eastern Cuba here. But there is the chance that if it comes far enough south here, that it could really ramp up very quickly and could become a major hurricane either late this weekend or early next week. So we're going to really have to watch that very carefully. We've been talking about it all season, how warm the ocean temperatures are in this area and how much energy is in the ocean. So that is certainly a concern. And then the rain, of course, is going to be the other big concern here for these Caribbean islands. We could be looking at more than a foot of rain, maybe 2 feet of rain in some areas from Jamaica to Hispaniola. So we're very concerned about mudslides and flash flooding with this slow-moving storm.
Could Florida feel any of this next week?
Yeah, we're going to have to keep a close eye out for it. I think the chance is low to see any direct hits on Florida. Overall, we're thinking that the storm does turn eventually after maybe meandering around down here for a couple of days. It should begin to turn and then head up to the north and east, maybe across the Bahamas or Turks and Caicos. Right now, I would say the chance of a direct impact on Florida is low, but sometimes funny things happen with these storms that like to meander around. So the southeast coast of the United States still needs to keep a close eye out for it, but right now I would favor a track across Cuba and then out across well east of the United States.
Alex, you play pickleball?
I have. I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
All right, buddy. Up here in New Jersey, come see us. I'll battle it. I mean, Alex is young, probably a lot better than me, but I will fight, man. All right, up next, Dr. Jeffrey Gardier joins us to talk about the psychology of protests and how they can provide some emotional support to Americans.
Also coming up, guest chef Andrew Riccatelli's busy in the kitchen here at the Sunrise Diner cooking up some Italian delicacies. And we're not talking breakfast food. And we're not complaining about that either. We'll be right
Those
back.
look like gnocchi.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Dave's warming up for pickleball later today, I think. Welcome back to Connecting America from the Sunrise Diner in Rosa Park, New Jersey, where we're covering the top stories for you today, not just pickleball, but everything going on. Talking about Amazon, one of the largest private employers in the country, more than 1 million workers. Now it's looking to replace those humans with robots. No big surprise here. We're using our AI reporter, Adam, to tell us about this story, hammering home how quickly technology is impacting our lives.
Hi, AI Adam here. The producers like to use me to have a little fun, get a laugh. But this story is very serious, as it can cost hundreds of thousands of jobs. According to the New York Times, Amazon is aiming to replace more than 500,000 workers with robots. Amazon said the robots would allow the company to sell twice as many products within 10 years. According to the Times, Amazon would like to see 75% of its warehouse workforce replaced by robots. To not come across as harsh, Amazon won't call these workers AI or robots, but something less threatening such as advanced technology or cobot. So again, no jokes today. Technology is fascinating, but it is also very unsettling.
And Dave, Amazon's pushing back on this New York Times report. They're saying the paper only saw documents that reflect the views of just one group within the company. But it sure seems, with automation and the advancement of robots, that it's moving in that direction.
If you're not thinking about how your job will be impacted by automation and AI, you are failing yourself and your family. And I tell that to old and young Americans. I study AI a lot. I talk to anyone going to college and say, first think about your major and how it will be impacted by automation and AI, because the chances are
it will be.
It will be. And the chances are pretty good that that job can be replaced. And that is a scary future we are looking at. A lot of experts say, well, millions of jobs will be created coming out of AI. That's not entirely clear. What it looks like right now is if you eliminate 2 million jobs, it might create 100,000, 200,000 new jobs. That still leaves you a net loss of millions of jobs across the country. It's as scary as it is exciting.
But you're irreplaceable, so we don't have to worry about you.
Look, I mean, AI, what's his face there, just feels otherwise.
Adam, you couldn't remember his name, so.
Believe me, there are AI podcasts right now created by AI that are doing millions of downloads a week. We are all, my friends, sadly replaceable. All right, an estimated 7 million people hit the streets in 2,700 locations to protest Saturday. That was big cities and small towns from coast to coast. That, of course, according to the organizers of the No Kings demonstration aimed at the Trump administration policies, with millions choosing calm, unified, and even joyous in some cases gatherings over conflict. It raises an interesting question. What motivates people psychologically to join peaceful protest movements of this scale?
Yeah, it was big. So here to help us understand the mindset, if you will, behind the marches and the demonstrations, our Connecting America contributor and clinical psychologist, Dr. Jeff Regardier, is with us this morning. Good morning, Dr. Jeff. So, you know, it takes a lot for people to get off the couch and say, I'm going out there, I'm going to protest, I'm going to march. What gets people motivated to do that?
Well, I think sociologically, this is a way for people to connect with one another, no pun intended. It gives them a sense of purpose. It gives them a sense of community, Jim. And if nothing else, it's a powerful and a very peaceful way to show their strength in numbers, to give a very clear message as to what it is that they would like to say as to what they are protesting against. Psychologically, it's just a healthy catharsis. It's a way to be able to express your thoughts and your emotions in a constructive way.
On the flip side, should people feel bad? Sometimes I feel guilt because I'm going to be honest here. I've never attended a protest of any kind in my 49 years on this planet. Should people feel bad if they're not voicing their opinion and taking to the streets?
Certainly, I think they may not feel as good as the people who are empowered to get out there and do the work. I think there's some guilt that people have where they turn on the television set and they see all of the people out there who are peacefully protesting, who have the same views that they have, but yet here they are perhaps sitting in their kitchen, right? Instead of being out there with everyone else. So I wouldn't want to paint them as being less than, but certainly I think we should be inspired to get out there to do more peaceful protesting. It's part of the American way.
We noticed, Jeff, a number of families out there, even some children at the marches. Any impact or benefit for families doing this kind of thing together?
Yeah, well, certainly if it's a peaceful protest, then it's certainly a much safer situation for everyone. But with the family doing this, it's part of family bonding, of course. It's part of a learning experience for our kids where they learn that they can be empowered and don't have to be victims, perhaps, to a system that they don't agree with. And it teaches them valuable lessons about hope and as well as the purpose of community involvement and taking a stand as part of our democracy.
One of the critiques among organizers and those on the left, Doc, was that Gen Z really didn't turn out. Is there apathy among younger Americans in the country right now?
Yeah, I've talked to many of them, and they feel that they've been bombarded. They feel that perhaps they're not getting the jobs, or there aren't the communities out there that support them as far as education, as far as employment. And so they are losing that sense of empowerment that perhaps we should be having. We see, when we look at that particular group, Dave, that we see higher levels of anxiety and depression, even though we also see higher levels of involvement in therapy and support groups for one another. But I think it's a very clear message that we all need to come together through the different generations to express what it is that we feel needs to be said as to what's happening right now in this very precarious political time.
You know, we heard President Trump's reaction to these marches. He said the crowd sizes were not large, and he belittled those who took part as not representative of America. But Dr. Jeff, what does it take for as many as the estimate of 7 million people to get out there and say, I don't like what's going on? What does that say when you look at the size of these marches about the mood in this country?
Yeah, I think a lot of people really wanted this No Kings protest to be peaceful because of a lot of the messages that were coming from a certain political party or the political system itself. And they had to legitimize it. And they did that by giving a very clear and concise message as to how they felt. It gave them a sense of moral control. It was a peaceful, well organized group with a unified and cleared message delivered with dignity. And in many ways, it really did obliterate a lot of the fallacies that were being put out there about people being un American. I can't think of something more American than coming together, being part of the solution, than being part of the problem.
I'm just so glad to hear you remind Americans of that. It is a profoundly American act. Whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, where you stand, protesting is what makes our country great. And let's be honest, we talked to Rep. Joe Walsh, a former congressman. He took part in the Tea Party protests 11 years ago. He also took part in the No Kings protest. He is someone that believes you need to get out there no matter what side of it you are on and be heard. Dr. Jeff, always great to have you, sir. Thanks so much.
All right, coming up next, we're going to take a closer look at the race for governor here in New Jersey, specifically how Hispanic voters could make the difference. So, Connecting America, we'll be right back. Good morning. Welcome back to Connecting America. We've got Carlos Medina here joining us at the table here at the Sunrise Diner, President, CEO of New Jersey's Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, because we want to talk about this race in New Jersey and specific voting groups that are going to be key to how this race may turn out. In fact, the latest polls have the race for governor in New Jersey very close. Democrat Mikey Sherrill's lead over the Republican Jack Ciattarelli now at 7 points in the latest Fairleigh Dickinson poll. Fox News poll last week had the candidates 5 points apart, with Ciattarelli closing the gap slightly. One thing analysts agree on, with so much influx, both candidates need strong support from both the Black and Hispanic community. They may be the key to winning this race. So, Carlos, we'd love you to weigh in and let us know, with Hispanic voters making up 22% of the electorate here in New Jersey, what are you seeing in terms of how they feel about these two candidates?
Sure. I want to first say that my appearance here today and a lot of what I'm saying is my opinion when I talk about specific candidates. So my attorney at the chamber just said, be careful. As a chamber, we don't endorse candidates. So I just wanted to be super transparent.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the GDP, gross domestic product, of Hispanics in New Jersey is $127 billion a year. The Latino Donor Collaborative does this study every year. It's the 5th largest in the United States. So we're driving the U.S. economy. During COVID, when people weren't working, Hispanics were in hospitals, restaurants. So there's a great energy around the community. I think Jack, because he's been running for longer, has been more engaged with the Hispanic Chamber. He's been at like 8 of our events in the last 2 years. Mikey, unfortunately, has missed a lot of events. We had a big event in July called Feria de Negocio, and the night before she had to cancel to be in Washington and send a video.
And how does that sit with
the chamber members were not happy. They were not happy because, again, he then showed up, spent 2 hours, and Jack's a charismatic gentleman. So she hasn't been able to do that connection, which is a shame because I want our members to know both candidates to be able to make an informed decision. And at the end of the day, I want people to vote so people recognize the power of the Hispanic community. So it is frustrating. I even offered today, come meet me at the diner, come meet me at a Cuban restaurant, and I'll talk about the community because it's not about Carlos. It's about our members being catered to, our members being recognized, their contributions being recognized. So showing up is one way that you do that.
We have offered Jackie the opportunity to sit at this table with us. Mikey, excuse me. I'm thinking of Virginia there for a minute. Mikey, the opportunity to come sit here. Let's go back to 2024. Hispanics really shifted in New Jersey toward Republicans, toward President Trump. Kamala Harris won Hispanics, but only 52% of the vote. Why?
Yep. Hispanics are not married to the Democratic Party. They're
shifting arguably all across the country, but in
all
particular
across
in
the
New York
country.
and New Jersey.
But New Jersey's also like 15 different countries of origin of Latin America, more or less. A lot of Dominicans have been making a huge impact politically and in business from Colombia. So you have all these, this melting pot, and they really are business focused. So you don't want to just go to rallies with your, an example, and I'll just say Republicans, so it doesn't seem like I'm picking on a particular party, but you don't want to go into a room where it's all Republican Hispanics cheering you on, and then you're not really hearing the issues of the entire state.
But what are the issues? What are the issues the Hispanic community
The Hispanic community
on?
wants doing business in New Jersey to be easier. They want to have more support, and that's what the chamber provides. And when we provide that, we do an annual report. The figures are amazing. Like in this country, we focus a lot on workforce development, but focusing on training entrepreneurs to contribute to society and to the economy, to me, is less money would be spent and it would have a greater impact. But the economy is always number one. I remember literally being on with Bill Spadio when he had that show on Channel 9 on one of the Christie elections, and I said, the economy, the economy, the economy. He kind of laughed at me like, no, immigration. Hispanics, by far, the number one issue is the economy.
Sure. What about the Trump administration's actions through ICE and what we're seeing going on across the country? How is that sitting with your constituency, if you will, in terms of concerns about being able to go to work, being able to
Yep.
leave their homes. We've heard in some other cities where we've seen ICE in action that people are actually afraid to leave their homes. Is that an issue here?
It is. It is. It is having a negative impact on our members because less folks, like if they have a forward-facing business on Main Street, people are a little nervous to go into the business. People are nervous to work in the kitchen in the business or in the back office of that business. And it's not because they're here illegal, it's because they've seen so many legal residents, somebody born in Puerto Rico, and they're picked up. So like, I don't want to be 3 days in prison and harassed and have to hire a lawyer just because I go to the grocery store to the corner bodega. So they're nervous to be picked up along with, the tuna and the net. They don't want to have to be harassed.
Does that have an impact, though, do you think, on
Yes.
Election Day?
Yeah, it does. It does. My members, when it was a little unclear if Jack what his opinion was, and if you were here undocumented, but you hadn't committed a crime, you have been here for 5 years.
And you've been working hard to support your family. And
he has articulated that clearly to me. I think a month ago it was a little unclear. So that articulation that there's a path to recognition has helped many of my members say, I could consider him now. They would not even consider him if that was still foggy and unclear.
So he believes there should be a pathway to citizenship for those here.
That's what he has said. That's what he has said. He uses the term recognition. He uses, yeah, definitely. I don't think he's lockstep with the president. I think, a Jersey Republican's different than a Republican in another state. He's probably a Democrat in Texas or something like that with a lot of his viewpoints and positions.
What do you think, or what would you like to see happening in these closing days of this race that will resonate with your members?
Just a recognition. I will say Mikey has seemed to make a more recent effort to be in the Hispanic community. I've seen some cool videos and whatnot. So it looks like she's getting the message, and that's my intention, to let her camp know, if we're going to work with you in a possible administration, let's start the relationship off mutual respect, sit at the table, tell you about what we do for New Jersey and what we could do together for New Jersey if you're successful. I've been able to do that with Jack. I have not been able to Mikey. And again, I offer it. We're bipartisan.
What's going on?
I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not sure. Maybe afraid to make a misstep and that somebody corners a weird question or something out of left field that could impact the race. That's all I could think of. But I don't think, in my heart, I don't think she personally has any issue. I think it's her handlers and everybody around her, because I know how a campaign works.
Yeah.
So many people are trying to push you in one direction or pull you in another. So I think Mikey Sherrill personally has a desire to know more about the chamber, our members, and work together collaboratively in the future. I just don't know why her handlers are kind of...
All right, well, Jack...
Maybe we can get her here with you, right here at the table.
Let's get her here at the table. Carlos, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. All right, meanwhile, New York City has, of course, 5 boroughs, about 8.5 million people, and 1 mayor. Tonight is the second and final official debate for the 3 men vying for that position.
The leader, of course, in the polls, New York State Assemblyman Zoran Mamdani, self-described Democratic Socialist. Lagging behind him, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's running as an independent now after his primary defeat. Cuomo resigned as governor back in 2021, you recall, after that investigation found he sexually harassed a number of women and created a hostile work environment, something he has denied. Republican candidate, the conservative talk radio host Curtis Sliwa, who created the Guardian Angels, a group that promotes community safety.
All right, we'll have complete coverage of the debate for mayor in America's largest city for you Thursday morning. Meanwhile, if you want to connect with us, you can download the best of Connecting America each day. Wherever you get your podcast, just type in Connecting America in the search bar or follow us all across social media. You name it, we are there. You see them there on your screen. Please give us a follow. We'll be right back.
The views expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of USA Today or its affiliates.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Connecting America on the USA Today streaming channels. I'm Jim Rosenfield. Got Dave Briggs here with me at the Sunrise Diner in Roselle Park, New Jersey. How's it going today, Dave?
Hump day,
Yeah,
and hump
we like
hour,
that.
right? We got through
Yes.
halfway of the show and halfway through our week as well.
Yeah, it's day 22, by the way, of the government shutdown, if anyone's keeping track.
And it does not show any sign of ending from either side. Day 22 of this shutdown, now officially the second longest government shutdown in history. Republicans met with President Trump at the White House yesterday, but it was more about calling out Democrats than coming up with a way to end the shutdown. Trump telling the senators not to be extorted into giving in to Democrats. Democrat leaders calling the lunch a pep rally for Republicans and nothing more. Meanwhile, a Washington insider says Democrats may be struggling to get their message heard right now, but they just need to look back to the 1990s to see the way forward.
Lanny Davis, former White House counsel under President Clinton and a longtime political commentator, is out with a new book. It's called Finding the Third Way, Lessons in the Politics of Civility from My Journey Through History. This book comes out in January in time for the start of the 2026 midterms. And Mr. Davis is joining us this morning. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
First
See you,
of
Lanny.
all, what does the third way mean exactly, and how does it apply to what's going on in today's political world?
Well, the quickest way to explain it is remember 8 years of Bill Clinton. He was a progressive liberal Democrat who also saw the center and the right of center as where the Democrats needed to move to win the country. And in 2 terms as president, he engaged in welfare reform. He certainly gave us an economy unlike any other. And his last day in his second term, he had a 65% approval rating. So he did pretty well over 2 terms as president. And when I called the book Finding the Third Way, I was thinking of Bill Clinton, and he's written a foreword for the book just to confirm that that's the direction we need to go to.
That's terrific. Triangulation, of course, famous. But we're in different times, aren't we, Lanny? I mean, look at New York City. Zoran Mamdani is dominating the polls there. The energy seems to be with the AOC Bernie Sanders wing. If you look here in New Jersey, there's a very moderate candidate for governor, and those polls continue to tighten. Can you triangulate? Can you go to the middle when all the energy is on the far left?
So it's very odd logic to take New York City, the most liberal city in the United States, and say, oh my God, it's the Democratic Party. You know perfectly well that New York is traditionally a liberal city. I'm a liberal. But to take New York City and a candidate that wins in a liberal vote and say that that's the country, you know that's not the case. In New Jersey, I just heard all this spin about the polls tightening. Mikey Sherrill has never been behind 5 or 6 points in a race is a large margin. I have no idea what the spin is that the race is tightening. A 6-point
Well, let me tell you what it is, Lanny. Democrats have an 850,000 vote edge in terms of registration. They shouldn't be that tight if you look at that number.
Again,
and are you suggesting, take Mamdani out of this, don't you feel that most of the energy in the party is on the AOC Bernie Sanders wing? Those are the only 2 that can really draw crowds
well, we
across
could
the
say
country.
that most of the energy in the Republican Party is in their MAGA extreme base. No, of course not.
Sure.
Energy comes from the base. We all know that. People who turn out in primaries, we all know that. Mr. Trump has a problem with his extreme right wing. We've seen some texts that I wouldn't say that that's Mr. Trump speaking. So no, Democrats in New York don't represent the whole country. And you know that.
So you've worked, as we know, with both Democrats and Republicans from Bill Clinton to George Bush.
Right.
How do we get people to start talking to each other instead of, hurling insults? I know in the book you talk about listening to a wide range of people's needs and being willing to take that in and maybe negotiate and don't resort to name calling. But that's exactly what we're seeing going on right now. How do we turn that around?
And thank you. That's the thesis of my book. And I happen to be a member of the card-carrying member of the liberal Democratic base, been all my life a liberal, but I also recognize that we have moderates and conservatives in our party, in our country. And I do realize that the Democratic Party in every process comes out of a primary, probably to the left of an electorate, and then has to remember the center where the votes are. Same thing on the Republican side regarding chasing its right-wing base. Then there's a shift back to the center. So the key here is the listening, as you just said, respecting Trump voters, not always respecting Mr. Trump's positions, but respecting his voters, and talking to his moderate voters, just as Republicans have to talk to us moderate and liberal Democrats.
That's a really good point Lanny makes, because I call it the Katie Porter question now, because
Oh,
everyone
gosh.
should know how to answer. What do you say to the 77 million people that voted for President Trump? The fact that she didn't want to answer that shows that there's a bit of a communication problem. Everyone should have to answer that. Lanny, I'm curious, 7 million people just turned out for the largest single-day protest in U.S. history. How do Democrats seize on that kind of energy?
Well, the one thing that we sometimes do wrong as Democrats is to disrespect voters. My law school friend, when she ran for president, I think unfairly was attacked for using the word deplorables. She was describing people's positions, not people, but she was attacked for describing Mr. Trump's voters as deplorables, which I don't think she did. But nevertheless, it's a lesson to be learned. We have to respect voters. And I would think Mr. Trump would respect half of the country that didn't vote for him. But we need to learn to listen to voters and respect them, if not the candidates they're supporting. And that's my advice to Democrats. We can learn to disagree agreeably with people who voted for Mr. Trump. I have lots of friends who voted for Mr. Trump, and we have disagreements, but they're respectful. And that's my advice to the Democratic Party, to reclaim many voters that voted for Mr. Trump because they didn't feel that we were listening to them. And that's what we need to do.
Lanny Davis, thanks so much for joining us, and we
Thanks
look
for
forward
having
to reading your book.
I got to get one more question. I didn't know you were going to. I would talk to Lanny for all 3 hours of the morning. So, Lanny, I got to ask you one more question.
Thanks,
because
guys.
you were the former counsel to President Clinton. What is your reaction to this story where President Trump is demanding $230 million from his own DOJ? The Deputy Attorney General is his former personal attorney. I wanted to ask the lawyer in you what you make of this New York Times report.
There are so many issues that Trump is given forgiveness by most voters who are for him, who then say to me privately, I can't agree with it, especially members of Congress. So the answer to this question is there isn't a single human being, the most partisan Trump voter who I've talked to, and I have many supporters who can justify this. Not one. Try having somebody on your program who's for Trump to say it's okay for the president to use tax dollars to pay himself for litigation, rather than taking it to the courts. If he has complaints about the litigation, go to the courts. But to take his own money in his own government and pay himself when it's not been litigated, and especially the issue of the classified documents was the result of a warrant, and they found the classified documents. So let him take it to court. But try finding one Trump supporter, just one, who can say it's okay if it was a Democratic administration, I wouldn't mind him having the Justice Department pay him all this money. I don't think you're going to find at least a rational Trump supporter to defend that.
I can't wait to read this book, Finding a Third Way. Lanny Davis, it's going to be terrific. Really appreciate you coming on. Come back anytime. Love to have you. Love his voice right now. We just don't have moderates left. That's part of the problem as well.
Right.
Moderates on the left and the right have been purged from Congress, and that continues to accelerate. So both parties appear to be moving to the margins.
Yeah, definitely. It was great to hear his point of view.
It's great. Really great.
Hopefully people will take something away from his book in terms of how we get people to start talking to each other instead of, belittling each other.
I hope he's right. Yeah. I hope triangulation and going to the center is the way moving forward.
All right, looking overseas this morning, Vice President J.D. Vance, he's still in Israel on his high-level diplomatic mission to try to help solidify the tenuous Gaza ceasefire with Hamas. Tuesday at the Civilian Military Coordination Center, that's in southern Israel, where the ceasefire will be monitored. Mr. Vance talked about the mission there and how he feels about it.
We're talking about how to set up the security and humanitarian apparatus to put all this in place. But right now, where I stand, I feel confident that we're going to be in a place where this peace lasts, where it's durable. And if Hamas doesn't cooperate, then as the President of the United States has said, Hamas is going to be obliterated.
The vice president is also meeting with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on this trip, the president, Isaac Herzog, as well, and also with the families of hostages whose bodies have not yet been released by Hamas, that are still somewhere in Gaza.
All right, the U.S. State Department says it is deeply concerned about the levels of violence against Christians and other groups in Nigeria. The international Christian group Open Doors said Nigeria is the 7th most dangerous place in the world for Christians. The country's population is split evenly between Christians and Muslims, and Nigerian experts say Muslims have also been attacked by extremist groups like Boko Haram, seeking to establish its radical interpretation of Islamic law in the country.
All right, let's do a deeper dive into this with our foreign affairs correspondent, Amy Kellogg, joining us from Italy this morning. Good morning, Amy. Why the increased interest by the U.S. State Department on this issue right now, as far as you can tell?
Well, the problem has become worse since 2020, and some viral videos have gone around of preachers standing amidst dead bodies from their congregations. I think those have really struck a chord. They're extremely painful to watch and very sensational. Also, Bill Maher did a little something on it the other day on his show. He really was also impassioned on the issue and said that if people are complaining about a quote genocide in Gaza, why is nobody talking about a genocide that's going on in Nigeria? So I think you've just got the confluence of things going on that have kicked this to higher up on the list of burning issues.
So why are these groups like Boko Haram, ISIS West Africa, attacking Christians?
Well, as you mentioned, both Boko Haram and ISIS in West Africa would like a Sharia law state. So they're separate groups. ISIS in West Africa split off from Boko Haram. And then there's another group, which is called the Fulani herdsmen militants. They are nomadic herdsmen, and there's a group within that group that is, it seems like originally they were after the land that was occupied by Christians. They wanted the land to farm on or to do what they do, hunting, gathering. And that's taken on a much more radical anti-Christian feel. So there are the three of those different groups. But the ISIS splinter from Boko Haram is interesting in that it is not as much against government as Boko Haram is, but it is equally Islamist, but it's wormed its way into the population by, much like Hamas in Gaza, by helping out in areas where government has not been able to reach on a humanitarian level. So it's a little bit worrying that they have entrenched themselves more into the population. And they also see it as a black and white struggle, Christians versus Muslims, whereas Boko Haram also has killed lots of Muslims they don't deem to be sufficiently pious.
Very interesting story there. Amy, I can't let you go without asking you about the latest between Russia and Ukraine and that meeting that has been put off between President Trump and Putin. Where are we here? What happened to those Tomahawk missiles, and what's your level of optimism there?
It is so destabilizing, all of this back and forth, and I can't imagine what it must be like for the Ukrainians, and particularly for President Zelensky. It seems that Russia was not ready to meet the United States, or at least Trump in this case, halfway. And so apparently Trump was hesitant, didn't want to repeat the embarrassment of Alaska, where the red carpet was rolled out for an alleged war criminal, someone wanted in The Hague for war crimes. And, you know, amidst much enthusiasm on the Trump side, leading to nothing. I don't think anyone thinks that Tomahawk missiles will allow Ukraine to win the war, but it's clearly the prospect of them getting there has clearly rattled Russia to the extent that Putin was willing to call Trump last week and twist his arm. So there is some belief that the Tomahawk missiles could continue to push Russia into a corner and maybe bring it to the point where it will make some compromises that Ukraine will find palatable. But it's really an incredibly complicated situation, and I just think that this diplomatic back and forth, going way forward and then stepping way back, is incredibly difficult to parse, actually.
And in the meantime, we continue to see drone attacks in Ukraine, causing devastating damage in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, I think Ukraine wants to see something from President Trump that says, we have your back. Amy Kellogg live for us in Milan. Always great to have Amy. One of the best right there. After the break, some doctors are sounding the alarm after Republican lawmakers call on the FDA to cancel the approval of an abortion pill the agency just approved. More on that story when we come back.
We're back with Connecting America. The FDA's recent approval of a new generic version of mifepristone, the pill used in more than 60% of U.S. abortions, is now facing some political pushback. Some Republican lawmakers urging the Health Secretary, Robert Kennedy Jr., to suspend distribution and reverse the FDA's decision, calling for what they describe as a return to pre-Roe versus Wade standards.
To discuss this, we're joined by Dr. Kristen Lyerly, an OBGYN in Wisconsin and board chair of the Committee to Protect Healthcare. Dr. Lyerly, let's start with telling viewers what mifepristone does.
Mifepristone is a medication that we use for abortion care, but also to manage miscarriages and in other settings. and it's a progesterone blocker. So it blocks one of the essential hormones in pregnancy. It's part of a 2 medication regimen that I use commonly in my practice as an OBGYN doctor, as I said, to manage miscarriages and to provide abortion care.
So we know the FDA reconfirmed mifepristone safety just 2 years ago. It's been around, in fact, for a quarter of a century. So what's the basis for Republican lawmakers to call on the health secretary to review this drug again?
Politics. I mean, just to say it in one word, politics. This is a medication that has an incredibly safe profile. It's been around for over 2 decades. It's been used all over the world. This is the medication that some people might remember as RU486. The risks of a serious complication are less than 1%. It's 10 times safer than Viagra. It's even safer than Tylenol. This is a life-saving medication that, again, we know is safe and effective, but politicians don't want people to have it because of the abortion debate. Let's be honest. This is part of Donald Trump's backdoor abortion ban. He knows he can't do it through the front door. He knows that Americans will push back. We've seen it over and over and over again in ballot referendums. So now they're trying to do it in tricky little ways like this.
And we know that clinics and rural hospitals are disappearing across the country. So with that being said, what would it mean for your patients for access to abortion across the country if the FDA restricted this pill?
Hey, I work in a rural hospital. I work in a rural hospital that's on the brink. Remember when HR 1 was being discussed and the University of North Carolina published a list of hospitals that were in danger of closing for a variety of reasons? One of those is my hospital. We struggle to get doctors to come up there. We struggle to get nurses who are qualified to be able to work there. Patients have a really hard time getting access. So this is about so much more than just mifepristone. It is about healthcare in general. It's about preventive care. It's about rural communities being able to get the care that they need. But when it comes to abortion care in these rural areas, it's simply not there. Abortion care is offered in cities and it's offered often through the mail. And that's how I provide abortion and miscarriage care for my patients in this rural community. I tell them to go to the internet and to order their pills. It's much easier that way for them.
Why is your hospital and others on the brink?
So, for a variety of reasons, rural hospitals are, in many cases, because of the way that they're funded, they are operating kind of they used to have a lot of dollars. A lot of them receive Medicaid funds. So, with these gross cuts in Medicaid funds coming down from HR 1, you hear Republicans talking about all the money that they're giving to rural hospitals. What they're not saying is it's a third of what they typically would be giving to rural hospitals.
Yeah, it doesn't
they are
make up the difference.
Defunding rural hospitals all across the country. And interestingly, in Louisiana, there are 38, more than any other state in this country, 38 rural hospitals are in danger of closing because of HR 1.
Doctor, I understand you were just right at the center of the fight against Wisconsin's abortion ban when you had to actually travel out of state to do your job. What was that about?
Yeah, so after the Dobbs decision in Wisconsin, we had a law from 1849, 1 year younger than the state itself. And it banned abortion for nearly every reason. And that seems like, well, just don't do abortions to, the average person. But to an OBGYN doctor or to anybody who's ever suffered a complicated pregnancy, we can't not do abortion care. It is part of miscarriage management. It is part of infertility care. It is part of helping people who have complicated, heartbreaking pregnancies. So without being able to provide abortion services, we can't take care of our patients. I joined the Attorney General to push back on that. And as a result of that, my name appears on the judgment that brought abortion back to Wisconsin. I'm really proud of that. But anti-abortion foes went after my medical license and filed an egregious complaint. I clearly was going to be a target here in the state where my family has been for 6 generations. So I had to move my practice. I drive 7 hours to work in a rural hospital in northern Minnesota.
Wow.
You're doing that.
7 hours.
You're doing that
Yeah.
now?
I have been for 3 years, and I have kids. I have 4 sons who live in my home who are holding the fort here. So, we're all making sacrifices. We're all doing what we can to pitch in and help each other out. Where I work, it's really hard to recruit doctors. There aren't enough doctors in this country, and we're not training enough doctors to replace the doctors who are leaving. This is a crisis.
That's a longer story. We'd love to, arm you with a camera and just document what your life is like.
That's a fantastic
as a
idea
doctor in
and
a
tremendous
rural community.
perspective. Wonderful to hear that perspective, Dr. Kristen Lyerly. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Board Chair of the Committee to Protect Health. Wow.
Fascinating.
That is a real look
thought
on
your
the
drive
ground.
was
And that's
long.
what we're doing on this show, is getting
Yeah.
a real look at what it's like across the country.
All right, coming up, more ahead, including a new way to bundle and save when 2 streaming giants join forces. We're also getting ready for some good eats with Chef Andrew Riccatelli when we come right back. It's happened again. Gold has hit record highs lately. Here's the interesting part. Almost every time we see political unrest, protests, changes in economic policy, Wall Street panics, the dollar fluctuates, and our retirement accounts take a hit. Gold, however, stays rock solid. Joining us now is Shannon Davis, CEO of American Alternative Assets, to break down what's going on. Shannon, thanks for being here. So we've seen gold hit record high after record high this year. Why is that happening now?
It's not random noise. It's because we're starting to see a lot of stress in our economic system, our global system. Jobs are disappearing. Last time we saw jobs disappear at this rate was our last downturn, 2008. I'm sure everybody remembers that. Tech industries, retail industries, service sectors, they're all cutting jobs. Political tension globally is shifting. Powers are shifting, and that's due to just the other countries not having confidence in our financial system. In times like this, trust erodes, confidence in banks and institutions and even currencies, they waver.
So where does gold come into this picture? Explain that to us. We know the government can keep printing dollars when they need to, but you can't print gold, obviously, assuming that's part of the reason.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned something very important. That's the challenge that the government's having now is they don't have the ability to just keep printing money because it's increasing our debt, which is $37 trillion, which is unsustainable. Why gold? Because it's outside of the system. There's nothing attached to it but the individual that owns it. And in today's world, it's no longer enough that something just holds value. It must also survive systems correcting, like our market. Fiat money, which is our dollar, debt, collateral changes, they all depend on trust. We're losing that. We're losing leverage. This is when those are straining on our economy, and gold doesn't break, like you said. Central banks around the entire world are buying more gold than they ever have in the last 2 years, and that's why we're seeing record highs. But it all comes back to $37 trillion in debt, and we're adding to that every single 4 hours, billions. So this is what you're seeing, a safe haven asset, everybody going to it right now.
Shannon, I'm no financial expert. I always turn to experts. I do my homework, and we want our viewers to do the same. So tell us about resources that are out there to learn more about gold.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we've provided is many different guides that we've done our research. We've got a really robust research department. There's just things that people can do to educate themselves. That's what we provide here at American Alternative Assets. It starts with education first. We know the metals industry, hard, precious metals, physical metals, and that's what we educate people on. Everybody else can see what's going on in our markets, the uncertainties there.
How do people get the guide that you put together?
Yeah, so they can go to connect4gold.com. They can call us. We provide a free consultation. That's at 888-414-GOLD. Ton of educational material for people to get educated before it's too late, before we see a major correction in our market again.
All right, Shannon, thanks so much. Once again, here's where you can go for that guide, connect4gold.com, or call 888-414-GOLD. There's a lot more information than we were able to cover today, and it's free, so no excuses out there. Knowledge is power. All right, this is the segment we've been waiting for all morning. Chef Andrew Riccatelli of Baccarosa Restaurant in Nutley, New Jersey, here at the table with us. And he's been cooking all morning back in the kitchen. Time to sample what you've created here. Tell us what this is.
So this is buffalo ricotta gnocchi with pistachio pesto. And then there's some buffalo mozzarella on top, grated pecorino, and some fresh basil.
And for those that aren't Italian aficionados, gnocchi is a potato.
So this is actually not potato. This is only wheat flour. Wheat flour, egg, pecorino, and then that just gets rolled out.
I thought it was always potato.
Not
so
always
I'm learning
potato.
here
There's
this
actually
morning.
a few different kinds. There's ones that are like a choux pastry, which is eggs and flour that could cook down, and that gets dropped into boiling water. There's a few different kinds of gnocchi.
The smell is, I wish you guys could scratch and sniff.
I'm
on
glad
the
you
screen.
brought this portion for me, but where's Dave's portion?
It's in the back.
I'll fight you for it. I don't think you'll win that one. All right,
All
so
right.
you were a Food Network Chopped champion.
Correct.
What was the winning dish?
So it was a dumpling episode. I cooked a fried dumpling. I cooked could have been any stuffed thing in dough. So I cooked a fried dumpling, I cooked a raviolo, and I finished with an apple empanada.
What other Food Network shows have you worked on? And by the way, Dave, Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm gonna continue just going here.
There you go. So I've done. I did Chopped. I won Chopped. I did Chopped Champions. Unfortunately, lost, but that was tough competition. I did Kitchen Crash with Jeff Morrow. That one was fun. You got to go to people's houses and convince them to take all of the food out of their pantries and then cook it out in the street. Food competition show. I've done a couple judging spots on Beat Bobby Flay.
How did you get into this field?
I've always loved cooking.
Yeah.
Like, always. I grew up with my grandmother. She cooked at home. I always wanted to be in the kitchen with her, standing on the stool.
Nonas, right?
Nonas. Just getting behind the stove, cutting whatever I could, peppers, stuff like that. And I always loved it. And then right out of high school, I went to culinary school and then never stopped.
Are you seeing certain food trends across the country right now? What are they?
I think Italian is back. Italian's made a huge resurgence. We saw a lot of different foods come up in a lot of different years, a lot of modern Asian and stuff like that, which I have a pretty good background in. And I think Italian is in now, for sure.
Tastes so
This is
fresh.
unreal. I mean,
you
it
very
is
much.
spectacular. And I just came from Italy. I was there this summer, and this is as good of pesto as I've had
Love to
in
hear
my
it.
life. Is this something people can make at home, and what do they need to know?
For sure, it's super easy. The gnocchi itself has got 4 ingredients. It's just wheat flour, egg yolk, Parmesan, and salt.
Okay.
Just roll
We
that out.
saw you creating them
And the
back
ricotta.
there.
I forgot the ricotta. The ricotta is very important back there.
How long does that take to create these little guys?
It's pretty quick. You roll out the dough. It takes about 5 minutes to get the mix. Rest it for about 5 minutes, and then you can roll it out and cut it. Toss them in some flour, throw them in the water, and that's it. The pesto's hand cut, so really easy to make the pesto. You could do it in a mortar and pestle. You could do it hand cut. You could do it in a food processor, but really super easy to get it going.
This can be made at home.
No stress.
Oh my goodness.
Super easy recipe.
I understand you've worked, at Hobnob with some big name chefs,
Sure.
including Jean-Georges.
Yep.
What was that like?
I mean, that's the guy, New York, working for Jean-Georges and learning those systems and that culture and, kind of being in that ecosystem. I think it made me the chef I am.
What was the most important thing you took away from those experiences?
Definitely the culture, for sure. Definitely the culture, the cleanliness, the systems, how to be a great manager, how to lead people. I think, being in the restaurant industry and coming up in New York in the late 2000s, I think fear was a big motivator. And, learning from a team like that where, you can really mentor people and really take them under your wing and grow and develop chefs, I think is super important. I think that's the one major takeaway that I took from working with a team like that.
Well, Baccarosa is in Nutley, New Jersey. What else is on the menu?
So we have brick oven pizzas. We have a bunch of other pastas. Everything's made in-house, like I said. We have a couple of extruded pastas, gnocchi, cavatelli, mafaldine, spaghetti chitara. Everything's made fresh in-house. We have some steaks, some seafood, lots of small plates. It's a sharing concept, so you can come in, you can get a lot of small stuff, you can get some big stuff, spend the night with us. It's a good time.
Can you just enlighten me? What's an extruded pasta?
So,
exactly?
like a penne is an extruded pasta. It's made through pressure.
Yeah.
And it comes through a die. So the machine itself pushes the pasta out of the die.
I got it now. Okay. Yep.
And then these are hand-rolled pastas.
Okay.
A few tips for people at home cooking Italian. What are some common mistakes, or what are some things you recommend people
I think,
try?
honestly, just keep it simple. Good olive oil, good cheese, good flour. It's like a perfect start. Great tomatoes, and just keep it super simple. None of these dishes are complicated. Don't try to overcomplicate it. Don't get fusion-y. Just stick to the basics and, just great meats, great cheeses, great tomatoes, and you're off to a
Nothing
great
better.
start.
I mentioned we were just in Italy, and we went through a cooking class where my kids were able to make pasta. How easy is that for people at home? And why is it important? Because I think the flours we're buying aren't as good as what I'm eating here.
Sure, but I mean, any grocery store, I'd say most grocery stores, any Italian market, you can get Caputo flour. These guys make great stuff. It's all beautiful. You could buy it at any grocery store.
And better for you.
And better for you, yeah, for sure. They're made in Italy and imported, absolutely beautiful stuff. And making this stuff at home is really not hard. Some of the stuff requires a machine, even like a cavatelli. But, you could do it the Nona way. You could roll out raviolis by hand with a with a rolling pin or a wine bottle. You don't have to make it complicated. It really is easy. And, before we had, the technology to do it in mass, there were, grandmas making them for 100 years, way before that.
What was the cooking time for this gnocchi?
It's about 4 minutes.
That's it?
Yeah, 4 minutes, salted boiling water. That's it.
And then you add in all of the
it's really simple. It's not even, the pesto's not even cooked. It's raw. You just toss it in a bowl, and a little bit of pasta water helps the sauce kind of like hold itself together and stick to the pasta. But
sharing is caring, Dave. But I guess that ship has sailed.
You passed it over here. You're not getting it back.
The whole bowl right in front of them.
Right.
Oh my God! It's the highlight of my week. I'm sorry, dude.
It's awesome. Andrew Riccatelli, thanks
Thank you
so
so
much
much
for coming into the diner and feeding us this morning.
Primarily me.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate
right.
you. Thanks very
All right,
much.
after the break, Taylor Swift has conquered the music charts and the box office. Now she's taking over Halloween 2. We'll explain when we come back. Proceed, I'm still eating.
Oh, gosh, excuse me. Halloween in New Orleans has gone full Swiftie this morning with a front yard display celebrating spooky side of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's fairy tale proposal.
Oh, yeah.
The city's queen of Halloween, Llewellyn Berger, has turned her famous skeleton house into a Swift-inspired showstopper.
All right, let's talk about Spooky Swift with USA Today's Taylor Swift reporter, Brian West. Always great to have you, my friend. So what inspired this?
Hi, Dave. Hi, Jim. So this was inspired last year during the Eras Tour when Taylor Swift brought it back to the States. one of the locations was New Orleans. And this skeleton house run by Llewellyn Berger is always decorated in a fun theme. She brings hundreds of skeletons out. She makes all of her own costumes. And she knew as soon as that happened that she should set up a display. I have a book. I went there last year. And so she set up the Taylor Swift, the Scaras tour. And it was all the different eras. Fans from all over came up to her yard. And she thought this year, I don't know if I'm going to bring Taylor back out. But as soon as the proposal happened, she said, I've got to do it. I've got to set up that kind of gazebo setting. She still has the 12 different eras, including the afterlife of a showgirl. She took the album cover and put a skull over the top of it. What's interesting, though, with Llewellyn is she's saying that this might be the last year, but she wants to possibly auction off a lot of the Taylor Swifts. So if that happens, I will definitely be writing about it. But right now, she says she loves watching when they're out of town, the cameras, to see everybody who's coming up, taking pictures, and they get a lot of foot traffic.
I'm sure they do.
How do I dress up? How does everyone dress up as Taylor Swift? We want a few tips for Halloween.
There's every single era you could go for it. And I know you're a big fan, Dave, but a lot of fans go from, whether it's country debut Taylor with the boots and maybe summer dresses all the way through red, scarves, fall, autumn. You have Reputation if you want to dress in all black and get a pet snake. You have Folklore Evermore with the plaids, Midnights with anything that's blingy, and same with Diamond Dripping for Showgirls. So there are so many different eras that you could possibly dress up on. I love the costumes though that are super niche. So for example, at one of her tour stops, somebody dressed as a full willow tree, which is a nod to her song Willow.
And I don't know, aren't you going to just be Travis for Halloween?
There's also Travis.
I revealed my costume.
In the Chiefs number 87. That's a really easy one as well. Maybe Hamlet. How's Hamlet, Dave? Because of Fate of Ophelia?
There you go. Because the 87 thing has been a little overplayed in recent years.
I think Dave's going to be original no matter what it is. We don't know what it is, but we're looking forward to finding out. I think. I'm a little afraid because it might involve all of us at the table. All right, let's switch ideas now and talk about all these records that Taylor is breaking with Life of a Showgirl.
The biggest one that she broke in the past few days was she reached 4 million units, and that's the amount that she sold for the Life of a Showgirl. She surpassed Adele's 25 album, which was at about 3.5 million, but 4 million is really interesting that she passed that. A lot of fans were, on the fence about several of the different variants that she released, but a lot of those went towards these album sales. And she made a post this past weekend saying, I have 4 million reasons to thank fans.
So there's always the what's next question. What is on the horizon? Is there anything we know about the wedding date? Is there anything we know about appearances or concerts? I know you're all over it.
The two biggest questions I always get is, when is the tour happening? She did speak about this on one of the radio shows, saying right now she is a little tired. She wants to take a break, but she also knows how massive the Eras tour was. And if she goes back on tour, she knows it's going to be compared to that and wants to make sure that it's an amazing spectacle. So as of tour dates, there isn't much word on that. As far as the wedding, there has been a lot of rumors and speculations about next year. Taylor recently went on Seth Meyers and said she hasn't even started planning it. Her main focus was getting this album out and making sure to talk about it. And Travis's main focus is football. But I'm keeping my eyes open as early as next summer. But she said she was going to start planning it right when Showgirl was released. So I'm sure she's figuring that out right now.
Many are wondering if Blake Lively will be invited. A lot of speculation about that, Jimbo. And I got to tell you, Kansas City Chiefs look like a Super Bowl team again, so she could be back in that spotlight. Brian West, always great to have you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's find out who's in the diner, what's on people's minds. Mark Bonamo is roaming around. Talk to some folks right here. Mark?
Hey, good morning. How are you? We're at the Sunrise Diner here in Roosevelt Park, New Jersey. And of course, what we're trying to do on Connecting America is talk to real Americans about
what's on their minds. So today I'm talking to
Anthony.
Anthony and
Teresa.
how you guys doing? Where you guys live?
Roselle, which is the next town over.
Right. What brings you to the diner this morning?
Just to sit down and have breakfast with the family.
Gotcha. And the car's getting fixed right now, right?
It's absolutely getting fixed.
Okay.
We're trying to weed that out.
Right. Now, it's election season, right? There's a big gubernatorial race here in New Jersey. You got the Democrat Mikey Sherrill, the Republican Jack Ciattarelli. People are trying to get excited potentially about what they're going to vote for and why they're going to vote. What's on your mind when you go into the ballot box this year?
I mean, what's on my mind normally is the person that can do the best for me in my personal situation.
Right.
But there seems to be no answers.
Right.
From anyone.
Right. Now, what specifically do you need an answer about?
Me, myself personally, taxes,
Yep.
Especially real estate taxes, stuff like that.
Right.
More so than anything else.
Why is it particularly taxes that weighs you down?
One, the taxes are going up way too much,
Mhm.
way too fast.
Right.
And we don't really see any results as far as what are we getting for these taxes.
Mhm.
You know, we've been trying to get the trees cut on side of our house that the city's supposed to take care of. We've been talking to them for years.
Right.
We pay taxes every year. If we don't pay our taxes, it's a problem. But when we want something to happen, they don't even answer us.
So you're willing to pay the taxes, but you just want to get what you're paying for.
Well, we have no choice but to pay the taxes.
Right.
So we're willing to pay the taxes and we have no choice.
Got it. So what is the best thing any of these candidates could say to you going into November that's going to sway your mind one way or the other?
Well, they're going to they're going to look at the working man, the middle class, our issues. Are they going to lower taxes? Stuff like that.
Got it. All right. Anthony, Teresa, thank you very much for your time. All right, back to you guys.
Pocketbook issues on people's minds. Easy for me to say.
Easier
It's the
said than
gnocchi.
done.
It's stuck in my teeth.
All right, 'tis the season for Starbucks to roll out its holiday merch. Starting November 6th, you'll be able to buy the glass barista gold cup because America needed that. It's shaped like a teddy bear and it wears a Starbucks beanie and holds a
cute.
straw at the top. It'll sell for a very affordable $29.95.
What?
I'm sorry. What is the right reaction? Who exactly was needing
It
this?
was cute until I heard the price.
$30 on top of the $7, $8 latte.
Depending on what you put in it.
I think Red Cup Day is a week later, November 13th. That is when you can go in and you get the free Red Cup with a holiday beverage like a peppermint mocha, my personal favorite.
I do love a peppermint mocha every once in a while. All right. Our question today, let's see how that turned out. We asked you, what's your pickleball experience? Are you a pickleball addict? Just play now and then. Once was plenty for you, or you only eat pickles? Nobody eating pickles this morning. Now and then for most of you in terms of playing that sport, which Dave and I find a lot of fun.
I'm really surprised once was enough because once you play the game, you
kinda
realize
get
you
hooked.
can play with your kids, you can play with your parents, you can play with your grandparents, and it's just fun. You don't have to be extremely skilled.
Maybe they played against you.
That's the
and
problem.
That was enough.
And you would never come back. All right, if you want to connect with us here on Connecting America, download the best of the show each day wherever you get your podcast. Type in Connecting America in the search bar. Follow us all across social media. We are all over it. Jim and I are also big Instagrammers as well, so find our feeds as well. That'll do it for today. We'll see you right here tomorrow morning on Connecting America. Happy Hump Day. Did you want some? Oh, I'm
left.
sorry. I thought I saved you some.
No.
I think you can drip the olive oil in your mouth.
No. I'll just have my water, Dave. It's okay.
I think there's some more in the back.
Dave
Have a great
does
day,
not
everybody.
share
We'll see
very
you
well.
tomorrow.